We definitely pray for good connection. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you, and sorry, the
Yay!
internet. That's why let's keep it at a steady clip so we can get it while it's still good because
Hmm.
I just can't vouch for it. I'm currently in the process of getting fiber. I don't know if you've
Right.
ever spent time in Nigeria long enough to understand
I
our
have.
network
I
issues.
have. I grew up
Okay,
in
so I
Nigeria.
don't
I
need to explain.
understand.
Okay, so you understand. You get it. Okay. Because, honey, you out here, you're like, please don't embarrass me today. Just hanging in. And it's just like, sorry, network is poor. Connection is poor, you know.
Ah, that
So,
is something. So you
let
were
me
telling
try
me about
and
working
so
with
I think we're
Yvonne.
gonna keep having these.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I'm just gonna try to use the time I have with this internet well. But like I said, it's just like it's like supporting a friend. You know she's working on a project that's close to her heart, and you're like, how can I help you? And so I think we had like 3 days, but I think she had 2 days in Lagos.
Mm-hmm.
Then she went to Port Harcourt, then came back and flew back out. So during her time here was the time that I was just as helpful as I could be. So everything from which market should we go to shoot to I need to throw a comedy show in Lagos in a week or whatever it was. We were just there to support. But it was an exciting time. It's I think the most amazing thing about what I saw her do was just to see someone that had a dream
Mm.
and passion, and then when you see the final product, it just shows you that you should never ever discount what you're capable of doing. Never ever dream small. There's no reason to. Because I know when she told me everything she was trying to do, I was like, I'm sorry, how is that possible? How can you do all of that? With what time? With one person? And she just did it. And I think it's amazing to see the finished product. And I know that in Nigeria, it's going to be airing, I believe, on July 3rd. So
Oh, it's not even aired in
more people
Nigeria
can
yet.
see.
Okay, that's cool. I feel like
Yes, it hasn't aired
yeah.
yet, but I watched it. I got my way, but
Mm.
but yeah. So now everyone can watch it safely. Yeah. So it
Yeah,
was fun. It was a great. Yeah.
I can imagine, and I feel like it's interesting that you had to do all that work within a space of 3 days. There's a lot that can happen in such a short amount of time, and when you see it all come together, it kind of like makes sense. It gives rhyme and reason to whatever stress it may have been, and I think that really
That's right.
goes to our conversation blooming through all the seasons because depending on what season you are in life, it could come off like everything you're going through is chaotic and the world is flipping mad, but you need to
Hmm.
figure out a way to bloom through it. Before we talk about that, though, let's set the stage. Tell me a bit about Tosin. What's your journey been like? Who are you?
My journey has been really interesting and an adventure, I would say, and it's most of it has been self-inflicted. So we'll start there. And when I say that, I mean. I got up one morning after 24 years or so in the U.S. So I went there most of my formative years were in the U.S. And one day, I think it was a series of things that had been happening, which is interesting because they're repeating themselves again now. So at that time, I remember Eric Garner
Mm,
had been killed on camera, and I think that was the first time that I had seen someone literally die in the hands of police. And I was so sure that he was going to go to jail. I just was like, oh, it's on video this time. It's not something that is hearsay. We can see it. And then what ended up happening was
mhm,
that they got off. So I remember feeling really heavy about that, and I think I must have kept it bottled up or something. But eventually when Trump took office, I just something in me was just like, you know what, this is my like I'm done, and because how do you go from Obama to Trump? Even though I say that Trump wouldn't have existed without Obama, but it was still a shock to the system because you're thinking that the U.S. has progressed past this stage, and then it's just like, no, we're still here where we've been for how many centuries, and so it kind of just stared something in me, and I thought, you know what, I like adventure. So anyone who knows me knows I love to travel. It's one of my favorite things to do. And so at some point, I just was like, you know what? I need to move to a different country. I just need to move. And I don't know where, but I just need to leave here. And I'm willing to disrupt my life and my comfort zone just to get like a different, a change of scenery. So interestingly enough, like, because I'm a clown, I started off like, I'm gonna move to Paris. Yeah, I had this romantic, like, I'd even thought it through. I was like Josephine Baker, like, James Baldwin.
A
I'm just gonna
romantic
start a new
getaway
life.
plan.
I'm just gonna start a brand new life. Cause what, And I just, in my mind, I just was like, that's it. I'm gonna hit reset. I'm gonna learn a new language, live amongst new people, and just, do something different. Which, by the way, is like one of my biggest ways of blooming, so to speak, is that I always put
Mhm.
myself in uncomfortable situations so I can just see what I'm capable of.
Mm,
Because we don't really know what we're truly capable of if we're continuing to exist in the spaces that make us feel comfortable, right? So
mm,
I was willing to do it, but I started researching, like, okay, so can I get a job? What kind of papers do I need? What kind of, I don't know. I was just thinking, like, can I even survive there? Like, my French is so poor, even though I took so many years of it, I just never caught on. It's like, and then one day it was like this voice was just like, oh, you could just take yourself to, like, back home to your country. And I was like, what? Who said that? Why would I do that? Because at the time, I would only come here for Christmas. And so
right.
for me, like, moving here after 20 something years, I was like, no, there's traffic, there's
There's
mosquito. I
heat.
was just complaining about really silly things. But here's the thing. I think when God has you on a path that is part of your calling and part of your purpose, part of just your walk, whatever that walk is that God is taking you on, he will make things make sense for you when the time is right. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And I remember that was my reflex action was, can I just move to Nigeria like that, a place that I haven't lived in how long, whatever. But the truth of it is that when the time came for me to sort of move on to the next stage of my life, all of a sudden those things that I used to complain about just did not seem like a big deal anymore compared
mm,
to where I was in my life at that time. So for me, I came for 3 months to test it out. I was like, let me test it out for 3 months and just see how it is. If I don't like it, then I won't even try it. And all of a sudden, the things that I thought would bother me, like traffic, it was almost like I didn't see them again. It was like, okay, so what? I'll read my book in the car. I'll reply to emails. I'll do work. Is it light? Okay, then find somewhere where you can get, the light that you need. There's a solution to every problem. Um, which I acknowledge comes with a bit, it comes with a level of privilege that we must
right.
acknowledge as
Uh-huh.
Nigerians. And so I realized that, for me, being able to say, okay, let me figure out the answers to my problems with Nigeria, at least to a certain extent, is not something that just, I'm saying that anyone can do. But for
Right.
me, I guess I felt that I was able to do that. And so why not take the opportunity? So that's how I moved. And when I moved, I didn't know what anything. I just, I had a job. So again, the thing that I found with purpose and sort of conversations with, a higher being, God, all of that, is that you start to realize that when the path, if you follow the path, it will appear. That's one of my favorite quotes. Just follow the path, and the path will appear. And so for me, I remember being reluctant, but I just kept saying to myself, I just need the signs and I'll follow it. I don't have to see the full road. I'll keep going. And so for me, I thought of it and I said, okay, cool. Let me just start the walk. So let me set the intentions. I want to move to Nigeria. That's my intention. Okay, now what do I need to move? I said, okay, I need a job. I would like to, and I don't want to quit my job without having another job. And so I put that intention out, and then I started to take steps towards that. Again, not knowing what the job would look like or exactly what would happen, but just knowing that, okay, this is in my heart to do, and I had to start taking steps towards it. And so that's how I got a job that, shockingly enough, was like, yeah, you can work from Lagos. We don't care. You can work from anywhere, really. We don't, anywhere you want. And I was like, what? Because at that time, it just seemed so unreal that something like that would just fall in my lap. Um, but that was God working. And so I took the job. I moved here, so it allowed me to at least find my footing and figure out, okay, what's
Right.
what, so I could start to settle in. And then
Mm,
there was a point that came when I then had to decide whether or not I wanted to keep that job, which might have required me to go back to Nigeria, to the US, or if I wanted to stay in Nigeria. And again, the kind of person I am, I can have very strong convictions. People that know me
Mm.
will tell you that when I make up my mind about something, it's very hard, you know, and so it can be a good thing and a bad thing, right? So we
Right.
have to
Yeah.
acknowledge that there's good and
Yeah.
bad to everything, right? And so for me, it's good in the sense that it allows me to see things through. So if I say I'm going to do something, then I have to see it through. So in my mind, I was like, well, I'm already in Nigeria. I've already made it this far. So because of job, I'm now going to go back to where I came from. No, I can't do that. We have to move forward, and I have to have faith in this process. I just have to. So this was an American-based job, you know, very secure. So
Right.
really and truly, my answer should have been, please let me keep the job. I'm going back to America. But I said no. Something brought me here, and I have to see it through. So I'm going to have to just say no to this job and figure out the rest when the time comes, you know. And so that's what I did. So I let go of that job,
Did people think you
and
were crazy though? Did you have people in your family, friends, people who just
I
thought you
thought
were
I was
flipping mad?
crazy.
Okay. Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought I was crazy.
let's
Yeah.
put that out there.
I was like, so you're just going to just release dollar job like that. So, you know, nice one, you know. And so, but it just, you know, my family's always been supportive. So that's the good thing is that they really, and I thank them for that because it's not all the time that your family and your friends are supportive, but mine were, and they were like, Tosin, listen, you've done, and I always say this about my story, please take the right steps. Like, I believe in following your purpose and following what is on your heart to do, but there are also ways that we can do it to ensure as much as possible, you know, we can't control all of it, but we can at least to a degree, you know, manage and mitigate some of our risks. And so for me it was like, I need to save money, I need to make sure that
Hmm.
I have enough for this amount of time of just trying to figure out what's next. So it's not like I just came in and I was just, as they say, perambulating about, you know. So coming here, you know, I just said, okay, I'll leave this, but that's because I know that I have a runway, and but then also just trusting that the plan will be further revealed as I move
Right.
forward, because you really have to just believe that in your heart. And so that's what I did. And guess what? Things started to happen. And every time people come to me and they say things like, oh, can you mentor me? And can you tell me? I said, okay, you know what? I can tell you what I've learned so far, but I have to be very honest with you that I can't tell you what the future holds. I literally do something called following the breadcrumbs. I just see the path, and like I say, I start to follow, trusting that as long as you are aligned with your purpose, that you will find your way. And so for me, I just usually that's what I'm busy doing is literally following breadcrumbs. So if it looks like I know what I'm doing, I'm here to tell you today that don't be fooled. I'm taking it a step at a time, and I'm just whatever is in my hand. There's a Bible verse that, you know, that God asked and said, you know, what is in your hand? And so I always ask myself, what is in my hand? What am I working with at this moment? And what can I do with what I have at this moment? And when I start to do that, I find that more is given to me, more is placed in
Right.
my hands, you know. And so
Right.
that's really been the journey. And so from that point on, you know, I ended up engaging with and leading the establishment of Greenhouse Lab, which was the first female focused accelerator program. Then from there, I launched the Bloom Africa. I just started becoming more and more fearless, because I think that's the thing with fear is that if you it never goes away, but if
Right.
you're able to work through it, meaning that you see the fear, you feel it, you are very much aware of it, but you're like, you
I'll
know
do it
what, it's
anyway.
me and you. We enter one shukuto, me and you, we enter this shukuto together. You know, at the end of the day, once you realize that you can overcome that one fear, all of a sudden the next time your fear is like, okay, I'll do this thing again because
Yeah.
I'll be okay just like I was last time. And
Yeah.
then you try it again and you're okay again, and you're like,
Right.
wait, so,
It's a
and then
muscle.
now it's a muscle. It's a
Yeah.
muscle. And the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. And that's
True.
just what I found, you know. And so everything I do is built on faith, is built on doing things whether I'm scared or not. It's just built on me putting one foot in front of the other. And so I tell, like, I mentor young girls, they're my heart, you know. And I just always tell them, you don't have to have all the answers now. And we as people, we need to stop putting pressure on ourselves to have all the answers now. I need to know what's going on now, what's going to happen tomorrow. I need to know. And like, it's one thing for us. Like I always say, always plan. You must always plan, because I think it's
Yeah.
important to have a goal that you set for yourself, because then the question is, if you don't have one, then what are you working towards? I think there's a
Right.
quote that says, if you have no goal, you'll go through life never making a shot. I'm
Mm.
sorry, that's Nigeria. Right on in a second. Um, I'll keep
It's fine.
trucking
We can.
through it.
Yes, we
And
can hear
so,
you. Mhm.
thank you. And so basically, it's just one of those things where I feel like you just have to continue to move forward, in everything that you do, just trusting that whoever has placed or planted this seed in your heart will also provide the answers for you when the time is right. So as you're picking up the wisdom you need, the wisdom of this season is the only thing you need to figure out is, what is this season teaching me?
Yeah.
What wisdom do I need to pick from this season? That wisdom is what will then carry you forth into the next season. So for every season you're in, you have to understand that there's something you're supposed to be getting and gaining from that season. And for me, that's been my journey. It's just taking a little bit here, and then I apply it to the next step.
To the
Then
next
whatever
step.
I
Right.
get to that next step, I take a little bit there, apply it to the next step. I never see the full staircase. I just go step at a time. That's all I'm doing, to be very honest with you. Yeah.
That is, it's beautiful that you say that, and you're right when you say that a lot of young people, we are so consumed with, the end, the big thing, and we
Yeah.
forget to focus on this little now. How
Yeah.
did you learn that discipline? How did you train your mind and your spirit and your soul to think about looking at what's in your hand now and making the best of it now?
So I'll be honest with you, I'm still learning. I always say that anyone that tells you that they have the answers to it all, question that person, honestly,
Hmm.
because I think part of our journey on this earth while we're here is that we will always continue to be in learning mode. No one leaves here having fully grasped or understood everything that there is to understand. Just 1 second,
Right.
please.
Hmm.
I didn't want the TV to come on because the light just came back on and interrupt
Oh,
us.
okay.
And so for me, it's a practice that I'm still honestly building a muscle in. But it's one of those things that with everything you do, you have an opportunity to practice it. You have an opportunity to focus on the present. So I think this era or this season of COVID that we're in has been a really, really, for me, um, an enlightening time, a
Hmm.
time when I have really been able to really go inward and ask myself questions like, okay, now that you literally don't know what tomorrow holds, what can you do today?
Right.
Because like literally every day feels different in this season of COVID. You
True.
don't even know
Yeah.
what next week. You don't know what next week is going to bring. You come on social media, it's something new every day. The news, it's like every week something else has
Yeah.
happened. And so
Yeah.
I think what we need to learn. One of the things I know I need to learn is to further release this grip of control, because this season will teach you that we don't have control.
That is
And I
true.
think once you start to realize that, yeah, we don't. And once you start to realize that, you'll start to take each day as it comes and ask yourself, what can I do today with what I have in my hand today? Today, oh, today. And then when you now do today, then we can now say, okay, what might I like to do tomorrow?
Right.
And can I carry anything over from today? So we take everything now a day at a time. And I
Hmm.
think really and truly that's how we as human beings are supposed to really live this life. I think even the Bible, in the Lord's Prayer, it says, give us this
This
day
day.
our daily
Hmm.
bread. It is this day. It is this daily bread. It is not tomorrow's bread. It is today. And so I think refocusing our life's journey on the present is something that we as human beings really need to understand and learn. Otherwise, we will go through this life literally not stopping to smell the roses, just always in hustle mode, always just everything, 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 now, 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 now. And we're not pausing to reflect on each day as it's going. So each day, I personally am grateful. I practice gratitude. Each day, I ask myself, what can I do today that maybe I didn't do yesterday, or that I can carry from yesterday into today? And so I'm just taking it one day at a time. And I think it's been a really lovely experience, sort of slowing down to the level that I am now. Not that I don't have 10,000 things going on. I do. I have a long list. And like I told somebody, I went back to my strategic plan for the year, because even though I say we don't have control, like I said earlier, it doesn't mean that I don't plan, because I'm
Right.
very aware that if I don't have goals, I can go through this life and never make a single shot, because if I don't even know where my goal is, then what
Right.
am I doing? You know what I
I
mean? So
would
I will
say
always have, yeah,
I would say that making a plan kind of like gives you a direction to face, of all the paths in front of you,
that's
you
right.
know where you're facing, and then you just take it one
It's a
step at a
direction.
time along the path. Yeah.
It's a direction. You got it.
I
So
think,
for me,
go
yeah,
ahead.
that's what this is doing. Yeah, yeah.
So
Go
it's
on.
it's it's good that you talk about like the COVID, the pandemic that we're dealing with. 2020 as a whole, it really has been a year where I find that a lot of people are learning the art of the pause. A lot of people are
Hmm.
understanding that life is happening, the world is revolving, but then you do have to spend some time looking in the mirror and getting to know the person that you've seen in there. Have you had any sort of experiences in life that has put you in a position outside of things going on, in the world, but then your own personal experiences that's put you in a position where you literally had to look at yourself and say, okay, Tosin, this is my eye, this is my nose, this is my mouth. How am I going to figure this out? Even when it comes to creating a plan, how do you create a plan to help you determine the direction you're going to face? How do you look at yourself and say, this is what it is, this is who I am, and this is how I want to show up in the world?
That's a very great question, and it's one of my favorite questions, because you probably heard me say this already a few times, and the word is purpose. And in many spaces, when I talk about purpose, I talk about how it's the single most important thing that I think we have to figure out while we are here. And here's the thing, when it comes to purpose, I actually think we're all born with it. I think it's a blueprint that we all carry within ourselves. And so sometimes when people say, I have to go out and find my purpose, I say, no, it's there. You just have to discover it. It's not
Mm.
lost, it's already there within you. It's just about whether or not you can go on the path of discovery to discover what that purpose is. But you don't have to find it, it's already there. That's the thing with purpose. And I always tell people that the thing with purpose is that it has to fulfill four things for you to know that it's purpose. And so if there's nothing else that we spend this quiet time doing, I think it's to say, what am I here for? And what am I supposed to be working towards? I feel to a degree that I have discovered mine. I think mine will manifest in different ways, but ultimately I've always been focused on impact driven work. I went to a school of public service. I've done impact work for 16 or 17 years now. Everything I do, from my full-time jobs to my side jobs to my side hustles, it's always about how can I make a difference in my own little way. But going back to purpose, there are four things that I always tell people that they have to ask themselves to figure out whether or not they've discovered their purpose. And the first thing is this something that I love, right? So you first of all just have to ask yourself, what is it that I love? What is it that I would do for free? If somebody was like, come and do this thing, then I'd be like, you know what? I don't actually mind. I love doing it so much that I would do it for free. Then the second thing is, am I good at it? So this is always funny, because I say it to people all the time. You can love something, but you may not actually be good at it. And you have to actually admit that, you know what, I love this thing, but I
That's
don't think
hard
it's
to
my purpose. I
admit.
don't think it's my calling. I'm not that great at it. Um, and so that's the first thing. And then I think the third thing, in terms of purpose. Did we lose each other? Are you still there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Can
Hmm.
everybody else hear me, or am I the one that's
I think we can hear you.
off?
If you can
Send a
hear, please
message. Let
put
me know
like
if you can hear
hearts
me.
and something so we know. Um, are you able to hear me, Tosi? It looks like the connection is finally weird. Nigerian internet, you're trying to mess with us. Can you hear me now, Tosi?
Am I back? Am I back? Are we good?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we're getting through this. So I left off on, do I love
On,
it? Am I good at it? Right?
mhm.
I hope people are still with me. And then the third thing is, does the world need it? So you can love something, you can be good at it, but honestly, if the world doesn't need it, I'm not sure if it's your purpose. Because at the end of the day, I always say about purpose that it has to be bigger than you. It has to be bigger than you. Then the fourth and last thing that people don't expect is, can this thing, can you guys hear me? Oh,
I missed the fourth
network issues
thing.
all over the place. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but we missed the fourth thing.
So I can't hear your side, but I'm waiting. I'm looking at the comments to see if people are still hearing me or they can see me. If I'm having technical issues, because you've frozen on your end,
Oh dear.
right? Looks like, I don't know if I'm still on.
I can hear you.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I can see you. Can you see me?
Oh great. Oh yeah, I just sent a message to say that I could hear you.
Okay, so I'll
Yeah.
just keep talking unless, so
Mm-hmm.
if I drop off, then send a message to say we can't hear you or we can't see
Yes.
you.
Yes,
Otherwise,
I'll
I'll
do
talk
that.
myself. Okay. So again, I don't know
So
if
we
you heard the fourth thing I said, but the
no,
fourth thing I
I didn't
said
hear the fourth
was,
thing. Yeah.
okay, so it's, is this something that I love? Is this something that I'm good at? Is this something that the world needs? And is this something that can sustain me? So even if you say, yes, I love it, yes, I'm good at it, yes, the world needs it, guess what? If you're not able to sustain yourself off of this passion or purpose or whatever you want to call it, then most likely it's not what was intended for you while you're here. And that's just the fourth part that a lot of people sometimes,
Struggle with,
don't
I
think of.
think.
Yeah, you struggle with
Yeah.
it. But I always say that you can do well, you can do good and do well at the same time. So you can do good and also take care of yourself. They're not mutually exclusive. I always say that. And we all have space in our hearts for charity work that we don't get anything back in return. But if something is truly your purpose, you must find a way to be able to turn that thing into something that is able to sustain you during your time, on this
Right.
earth. So I think that's a
Right.
critical part of purpose. And I think once you figure out what the purpose is and why you are here, and everybody's is going to look different, everyone's is going to sound different. And by the way, your purpose doesn't have to be some grand plan. It doesn't have to be something that's going to shake the world and, oh my gosh, everybody will know my name. That's not purpose. It doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes it is, and that's just a byproduct of it, but it cannot be what you set out to do. And so whatever you have in your hand, whatever you can do in the community that you're in the spaces that you occupy, that's what you should do. And just understand that, what, this means something. Even if all I do is affect one life and that life goes on to affect other lives and so on and so forth, I have made a difference. And so don't diminish your dreams, don't diminish your purpose. Honestly, give honor to everything that is within you to carry out. Always do that. Always, always do that.
And I would add to that and say that sometimes your purpose might be within your family. It might be you helping your family um, walk through a difficult situation. Because when you think about it, if everyone within a family is thriving, you have a generation that's thriving, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
might be that linchpin that helps your own
Yeah.
family go through that. So yeah, thank you. Funny, that was going to be my next question. Let's talk about how big a purpose has to be for us to call it that. But I feel like being able to identify purpose within the small, everyday, maybe even mundane things can potentially help a person live a more purposeful life, I think. Let's talk a bit about.
I will say about purpose, just to clarify, that we shouldn't confuse purpose with assignments.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah. And so sometimes our purpose, I always say that it's like a bicycle. So a bicycle wheel. And so your purpose can be in the center and then it can spoke out. You can have, do you know what a bicycle spoke is? That goes in
Mm-hmm.
different, so your purpose can be manifested within your family. It can be manifested in your community, but you must understand the difference between assignments and purpose. Your purpose is literally the core of your why. What is your why? And so for me, my why actually is really centered largely around supporting women and young girls. That's why I have the Bloom Africa. That's why I have Power Girls Africa, my mentorship program. That's why I engage in work that impacts women. That's why in my spaces I'm a gender equity advocate. So all of those things are manifesting in different directions in my job, in my hobbies, in what I give my
Right.
time to and my money to. But at the center of that is that core purpose. And so sometimes we'll see an assignment, and if that assignment is not linking, like, you, God can say, you know what, I want you to do this thing in your family. And quite
Mm.
frankly, a lot of us should be doing certain things within our family just for the very, reason that it's our family. So that may not be your purpose. It could just be, this is an assignment. You're supposed to help your
Right.
family through this rough patch, but it may not be your reason for being. That's
Got it.
completely separate. Your reason for existing may not be tied to your family. And I think as women, we especially have to be sensitive to that. And I say this because as women, society tells us that our purpose and our reason is to do what? Get married, have children, raise successful children. And a lot of us have bought into that to sometimes the detriment of our own true being and who we are. And that's why I say that it's always important to young people. I say, always try to figure out who you are first before you marry and have kids, because those things are assignments that you're on, but you should try and strive to understand what your own reason, as me, like this Tosin Durotoye, as I stand on my own, what am I here to do? What should I be doing? This is before kids, husband, all this other stuff that will become manifestations of that, right? So sometimes I think as women, we have been told that our purpose and our reason for existing is this thing. But that's somebody else telling you that. Now, if you're a woman and you decide that this is my purpose, no argument there. If you really
Yeah.
truly believe that that is your purpose, you can own that. But I always suspect that for women and men alike, our purpose is always bigger and it reaches far out beyond our four walls that we live in. Because guess what? It's easier to drive impact in the four walls that you live in, to be honest. It's easier to impact those lives, your children's lives, that you're their mother or you're their father, so you can choose to do that. But when we talk about purpose being bigger than yourself, I think it also should be bigger than the four walls that you occupy when possible. And so I think that's important to just clarify in that way as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I want to talk a little bit about one of the assignments that you're on right now, which is, running an accelerator, the accelerator program for girls and for women. And there's a lot of focus on, a lot of the articles I read about you had a lot of focus on the lack of girls in STEM fields. And it looks like that's something you're trying to promote. That's something you're trying to support and help. What's that journey like, and what's the landscape looking like so far?
So, as a point of clarification, I always have to clarify because I think it's the one thing that is really out there in terms of press is that I'm not with Greenhouse Lab. I haven't been with
Oh,
Greenhouse Lab for almost 2 years.
oh
Yeah, but
wow.
I've gone on to do other things. Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. And so since then, I've served as COO of a real estate company, which I did up until this year, and helped to lead some of their digital transformation, technology transformation. And then after that, I then decided to start my own consulting firm. And so now I am the lead, which was, I think, in the bio on your page. I'm the lead consultant for West Africa for Microsoft's For Africa initiative, which is an initiative that seeks to invest in startups within and throughout the continent. And so
Hmm.
that is my major client at the moment. So still in tech, and so I can definitely still answer your question. But that's been my journey so
Yeah.
far, has been trying, trying different things, which I think is also important for us as people, is to give ourselves room to figure out what makes us tick and where we best fit, where we can really expand and take up space.
Hmm.
And so for me, I can tell you that there's still not enough women in tech. We're still not giving them enough money to run their businesses when they do start a tech company. And so you can be, you can have a tech company right now in the world, and I don't even know what COVID has done to, we won't know the full impact of this thing till
Until
much
after,
later.
right?
But
Yeah.
I do know that before the lockdown and before the pandemic, we were at, I think, 2% were getting dollars from venture capital, So that means, and trust me, women-led businesses make up more than 2%. So we're definitely we're definitely not giving them the funding that they need to really drive forward and to scale up in ways that they need to. And as you know as well, we still have a space that is dominated by males. And so we still need more women and girls in tech. We need them in math classes, engineering. But one of the things that I also say is as much as I also preach, inclusivity in tech, I also tell people, listen, do what makes you feel good. And so I don't want us to now, because the thing with African parents is that they're very dangerous in the sense that if you now tell them that tech is the new thing, they will now bind their children to this thing. So before, in my generation, it was you can be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. It was three things everybody knows. And so now maybe they're realizing that, okay, maybe lawyer, I don't know, I'm not sure again, maybe there are enough lawyers in the world, I don't know, maybe that's what they're thinking. They'll now say, you know what, it's tech now, you must do tech. And it's like, allow people to choose their path, but if you can, expose your children to this option is my own thing. It's like expose them to the variety of things that they can do. Don't limit it to just these three things or these two things or just this one thing. Allow them to explore. But I find that with most young girls, we're not even exposing them to it in the first place for them to even consider it as a career option or as something that they could love doing. And so that's really what I preach is exposure, and then let them choose their path. Because again, don't be the one that takes away from your child's purpose. Every
True.
child comes with his or her own blueprint. And as parents, we should recognize what their strengths are, give them tools to expand on those things without necessarily like killing their dreams. I think it's very important to say that.
That's
Yeah.
I think that's a really solid message to pass out, because you're right. It's very easy to get so focused on one thing, and you find yourself trying to force everyone around you conform to that one thing. I remember when I transitioned into the tech space as well, was something that
Oh,
I yeah, something that I suffered was that whole thing like, oh wow, this is possible. Everyone needs to transition. And then I had to realize that the fact that I enjoyed this so much doesn't mean that other people are going to enjoy it. It doesn't mean that
that's right.
everyone is going to find a career in this path. And I had to consciously learn to, when a person comes and says, hey, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my career, instead of saying to them, go do tech, I would actually ask questions about what they care about, and then
That's
give
right. That's
suggestions
right.
based on that. So
That's
that's
right.
a
That's right. That's the way to do it. Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
let's talk about people who come to you and who want to have you mentor them. How do you work with individuals and sort of help them find their way, particularly learning to see what they have in their hands right now, learning to focus on their current season and blooming where they're planted.
I think I think honestly, if you ask me, I've worked with a number of women just on my own, quietly. I had a retreat earlier this year through the Bloom
Oh,
Africa where we took over all of Claire Essence Hotel, and we were there for like 2 days.
oh, nice.
So I got to spend really intimate time with all the women to really understand their dreams, their goals, their hopes. And I really think that a lot of women, they they already have a seed somewhere there. They have a seed. The question is whether or not they've allowed that seed to grow, whether they've allowed the voices of others to discourage or to step on that seed, whether they've allowed their own inner doubts and voices to tell them that that seed is a useless seed, nothing will happen from it. But I've never met anyone that has not had a seed of
Hmm.
something in them. I have always seen it. It's just about what they've done with that seed. So I think part of it is that you ask the question of anyone that is trying to figure out what to do or how to bloom is what's the dream that you have? What would you do if you were not afraid? What would you do if money was not the obstacle? What would you do if and so you ask those series of questions to try to dig deeper into that soil to try to dig up that seed. And then once you find that seed, then you now start to work to say, okay, where can we start
Hmm.
to help this seed germinate? And so sometimes it's just as simple as somebody say, okay, I'll do this one thing that I'm scared to do, just this one thing. No, I'm not going to do more than that. And you say, okay, you know what? Let's start with that. let's just do that one thing. No, it could just be you just say, okay, I registered my business. At least I registered it. I opened bank accounts. I did a logo. Now it's like, okay, we're getting somewhere. You're starting to see that this thing might be something. There might be something there, because now the dream is no longer asleep. There was a sermon that I listened to like 10 times. That is one of my favorite sermons by T.D. Jakes. And I believe it's called I Didn't Know I Was Me. And in that sermon, he talks about how literally we are so scared. Sometimes we catch a glimpse of who we could be, and it actually scares us. You catch a glimpse of like, and I have this idea, or there's this one thing I've always wanted to do. And if you actually sit with it for a while, you will realize that, this thing can work. But you know what? The very idea that it could work sometimes is exactly what scares us. Because we ask ourselves, like that poem by Marian Anderson, I believe, it says, who am I to be this person? Who am I to think that I can be the one to do? Who am I to think that I can do something that other person did? Who am I? Right? And so when we start asking ourselves those questions, in that process, we start to put our dreams back into the closet. We take it, we anesthetize it, we put it to sleep. We say, you know what? That dream is forget that one.
Too
Let me just
big.
focus on
Yeah.
it's too big. Let me just focus on the ones that I can do. We don't stretch. We don't even try in the first place. So I think that's the biggest thing is, how do I wake up your dream that you've put to sleep, that you're like, I don't even know where the dream is. I don't even know where I put it anymore. How do we find it? And then how do we try to see, okay, let's wake this thing up. Let's wake this thing up small by small. Let's see what we can do with it. And let's not be afraid of what it could become. Let's just take it a step at a time, and not say to ourselves that you're not worthy of this dream, or
Yeah.
you cannot do this dream. The other, like all of our African parents told us, does your friend have two heads? Is it not the same head that the other person had that they also use? People that have less than you are doing more. I mean, if we really decide to challenge ourselves, if we are really being honest with ourselves, a lot of us don't even try. We've already told ourselves that this thing won't work, or this
Yeah.
thing is too big, or this thing, I don't know, what am I even thinking? Why would I, when somebody else has already done it? Okay, and there are a billion stars in the sky. Like someone said the other day, have you ever seen two birds colliding in the sky because there wasn't enough space? We can all fit in the sky.
That
So
is
do your own
profound.
thing.
Hmm.
Show up. Try it. There's an audience for everybody. Everybody, there's somebody you can help. And that's just the truth. That's the truth. So
And
we have
I
to
think
believe
something
that.
to add to that is, I mean, even if you try and somehow the dream, the way you dreamt it, doesn't pan out, you're going to dream another dream, And it kind of like goes back to that muscle that you spoke about initially. You do the first one, you take whatever
Yeah.
it is that's from there, and then you can do the next one.
Next one. Yes. With the Bloom Africa, I always tell people that that's still so. I still call it a passion project, even though truly, like, I need to stop that. That's a way of me protecting my mind, and I'm very aware of it, because I always say to people that not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. We also have to give people the room to discover what they're meant to be. And for me, I never started off on an entrepreneurial journey. This was just something that I felt like that was in my spirit to do. And I remember I registered the website name 2 years. I actually designed the logo 2 years before I did anything with it. I just looked at the logo and I was like, I like it. It's cute. I like the name. And then I would put it away, and I didn't do anything with it. And one year, a good friend of mine, she was moderating a panel, and she was like, I want you to come and talk about your idea behind the Bloom Africa. And I was like, why would I come on stage to talk about an idea? Something that I have just been sitting on. I haven't done anything with it. Like, that's kind of, no, I wouldn't do that. And she was like, why not? Is an idea not a good thing to talk about? Is the need for this thing you're talking about, is it not something for us to discuss? Like, why do you think we need this thing? So she somehow convinced me to get on that stage and talk about something that I hadn't even done. I didn't have, I think I did a website like maybe 2 or 3 days in advance, so there will be something chat there. But what happened is, after I did that talk, I was so shocked at the number of people that came to me, and they were like, we love your idea. We think it's great. We need more things like this for women. Let me know if I can help you. We know that there are others doing it already, but we need more. We need more. Let me know if I can, direct you in this direction, or give you this and give you that. And so I remember thinking, this is really strange. Wow, people are just responding to just me as saying it out loud. And then what then happened afterwards is, like I said earlier, the thing with me is that once I say something, I have to now do that thing. And so after I now said it, I felt this pressure like, oh my gosh, I can't come back a year from today to this same conference. And the idea that I talked about last year, I still haven't done anything with it. I will feel so lame.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I pressured myself into saying, okay, let's just do our first event. So literally, I think I spoke about this thing in like maybe September. And in December, I had my first event. And I didn't even know what I was sitting on, because that event featured Lovey Ajayi, it featured Bozma St. John, it featured Funa Maduka, who was at Netflix at the time. It featured Justina Omokwa, who was the head of marketing at Apple, one of the heads of marketing at Apple at the time. And I just remember that I just reached out to them because they were in town, and I was like, do you guys want to help me launch this thing? It's just a small thing I'm doing. It's not like a big thing like that. It's just something small. And they were like, yeah. I was like, man. And what am I saying here? It's that your dream, when you start to speak it, when you start to put the intention out, let me explain this thing to you, and I want you guys to understand this thing and to keep it in your hands. If it is your purpose, and if it's something that is meant for you to execute, God will give you destiny helpers along the way. All the things that you need to make this dream happen will begin to appear in front of you. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about following the path and letting the path appear in front of you. You see, because if I hadn't even started this thing at all, I wouldn't even know that I could do even the bit that I've done so far.
Right.
Which to some people is like a big deal. To me, I'm like, I have bigger dreams. So these are just the preliminary steps that I'm taking. But what I have found is that with each step that I have taken, there have been people that have been like, here's something to help you.
Yeah.
Here's something that I can do to support you. People that show up when I call them, can you please come and speak at this event? Can you support my girls? Everybody shows up because it's what you're meant to be doing. So, and I think people also realize when you're doing something outside of yourself, it also helps. And so my message here is just whatever it is that you have on your heart, ask yourself those 4 questions that we asked earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and answer them honestly. If you're able to say yes, 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 then you must begin the journey. And do not despise humble beginnings.
Mm.
Just start. Just start. Start it with the little bit that you have. Even if all you can do is just start an Instagram page, or do your logo, or register it, or just offer to speak somewhere, or ask somebody to invite you to speak. Just take steps towards what you do, and then start sharing it with people that are in your circle that support you. Tell them, I'm working on this thing. I'm scared though, but I want to do this. You will start to see that people will start to show up for you, and you'll start to gain more and more courage as you step forward. It's what you must do. And we all must understand that we cannot leave this earth without at least trying to fulfill the assignment and the purpose that is within us. We must, at the very least, we must try. And so that's really my message today. Yeah.
And I think it's such a powerful message, especially I'm very drawn to the part where you said, talk to the people in your circle, people that you know who support you, and let them know you're doing this thing and that you're scared. I think
Yes.
sometimes we miss out on the point of vulnerability to the people who can actually help us, and that's how we miss our destiny helpers.
That's right. That's right. And I love that you use the word vulnerability, because that's really what this life is about. And I'm still learning that, guys.
Mm.
But I am understanding it as a critical part of this life journey is vulnerability. And anyone that knows me will tell you that when they think of me, I don't think vulnerability is one of the first words that would come to mind. And it's terrible, but it's just, it's like this strong woman thing and
Yeah.
independent woman thing, which, by the way, is also a huge part of who I am. I won't deny that. But at the end of the day, there is also something to say about being vulnerable and speaking your truth.
Yeah.
And part of that, I think we're able to be vulnerable when we also do a good job of selecting who is in our circle.
Mm.
So I always say, don't confuse the popular crowd with the winning crowd. That's the first thing that I tell young girls. Don't confuse the circles. Understand that even if all you have in your circle are 3 people that are rooting for you and their intentions are pure, those 3 people, they are worth more than 100 people, because
Yeah.
they are probably praying for you. They're shouting you out when you're down. They're encouraging you. You can't put a price on those people. And so you have to understand who those people are in your life, identify them, right? And do so with wisdom, right? And you know them. Every woman, I think we truly know. And you also have to ask yourself, by the way, am I one of those women too? So some of us, sometimes we expect this thing from other people, but we're not giving it. And I always call women out on that. In order for you to have support, you also have to be a supporter. In order to have somebody pray for you, you have to be praying for somebody. You understand? So we need to understand this thing at the fundamental level. Whatever you're seeking, you must also be that thing. You understand? And so I think once you're able to then develop that circle, and you will feel safe telling them, because you understand that these people are looking out for me. They support me. They want me to win. These are not envious people. They're not hateful people. We're supporting one another. You understand? And so you can tell them, I'm doing this thing. I'm scared. What should I do? Oh, and then while I'm talking about this too, don't despise those that are in your peer circle.
Tosin, sorry.
Yes.
So I'm seeing a
Yes.
notification that I don't necessarily understand. It looks like it's
Okay.
giving me a countdown or something. So if it disconnects, I'm going to reconnect because I want us to finish this conversation. Okay? Is that fine?
No problem. Yeah,
Okay. All
no
right. Go
problem.
ahead.
Yeah, so I think, where I was going with that was at the end of the day, like, choose your circle, be who you want others to be to you as well. And also, don't go out and look for, you don't need like all these mentors that I think we're being told as people in Nigeria that we need. Because when I moved here was when I started understanding that culture of, will you be my mentor? Will you be my mentor? And I was just like, I get it, but mentorship is like a relationship. So I ask people all the time, would you go to a guy in the street and just be like, will you be my boyfriend? No, you meet the person, you find out about them, you show up for what they do, you support them in other ways, you help them in other ways, but you just don't, so anyway, the point of it is
Tosin, sorry.
look within your
Someone just
circle.
gave me a
Yes.
tip and said I need to end it so I can save it. So let me end it and save it intentionally, and then I'll reconnect. All right. So we were talking about mentorship, and you were talking about that example that you gave. I loved it. When you're gonna walk up to a guy, and say, "Hey, are you gonna be my boyfriend?" Right? So
Yeah.
let's toe that line. I was curious to see where you were going with that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really, like I said, it's just about how we have this sense that mentoring is about just walking up to somebody you like and asking them, will you be my mentor? And I always say, based on what? First of all, you don't even know if this person is who they say that they are on social media. That's the thing too, is that a lot of people that we look up to sometimes, we don't even know who they are. We don't know their personalities. We don't know their characters in real life. And so it takes more than just seeing somebody nicely packaged to just go and say, I want that person to be my mentor. So and so it's a two-way street. Just as a person should have the opportunity to get to know you, and the easiest way to do that, they'll keep seeing faces. Maybe they'll see you at the conference you're speaking at, or you're leaving a comment for them, or you're asking them, hey, I love this thing you're working on. Let me know if I can help you. And so they start to recognize, I like this person. This person is so nice. And then you two, you're also using that time to observe them, to see, like, okay, is this person consistent? Did they treat people well? Did they treat me well? So it's a two-way street. And then at that point, it doesn't even require a formal ask. Most of my people that have mentored
Right.
me are literally people that we're friends. Like they just were like, Tosin, if not for this girl, did call me anytime. And so it just becomes a more organic process than a will you be my mentor thing, And so I always tell young women, and a lot of times too, you don't need somebody to be your official mentor, because I realize that it's a bit of a cultural thing here in Nigeria. People want to be able to say, oh, such and such is my mentor. But to me, it's like, so then what was your true intention? Is it just to be able to say somebody is your mentor? Because the person can be your mentor virtually. Like me now, Oprah is my mentor. Does Oprah know that I'm her mentee? It doesn't matter. I read all of her books. I read things that she writes about. I follow, the programs that she does. And guess what? She's mentoring me in that way. So I call those virtual mentors. So you
Yeah.
don't even need somebody to agree to be your mentor. Just follow them, read the books that they read. If they listen to things, ask them, because also these people that you admire, if you look at their habits, you realize that there are certain things that they're doing that's helping them, you know. And so that's really all I have to say about that in terms of
Yeah.
asking for mentorship, is let it happen organically, and let it be something that's a two-way street, and make sure that it's authentic, you know, make sure that it's
Yeah.
authentic. And if you can't get close to that person, then let them be your virtual mentor, and just study them, and you'll learn so much just by observing what they do and how they move. Yeah.
There's someone else that I had a conversation with on this series, and she had said one of the best ways to build a true mentor-mentee relationship is for you as the mentee
Hmm.
really to go in with something to give, like have something to offer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have you
Absolutely.
have you
Don't go
had
with
have you
empty
had those sorts
hands.
of experience? Hmm.
No, because sorry once again, Nigeria. Um, so with me personally, I feel that um, most people that would even call me a mentor, like I said, it was organic, and so there was not a tit for tat. There wasn't a, oh yeah, you didn't bring anything to the table. We just built a relationship
Mm,
organically. And from that point on, you know, we realized that there was a value exchange going on. And what do we mean by value exchange? Value exchange just means I'm bringing something to the table, you're bringing something to the table. But
yeah.
again, those things happened organically. It wasn't something that and it wasn't something that the person came to me expecting that I would just give value off top. I hope I'm making sense. So again, it's just about
Yeah.
that organic nature of having conversations and getting to know one another. And from that point on, you will realize that there is a value that is being exchanged. If there is no value, then there's no point.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Am I still there?
Yes, yes, you are. Okay, well, thank you. I really
Okay.
wanted to kind of like get your full thoughts with regards to mentorship because you're right. A lot of us either have situations where someone is asking us to be their mentor, or we're trying to get someone else to be our mentor. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that understanding the way that that dynamic works and understanding all the ways we can gain mentorship, it's brilliant
Mm-hmm.
that you spoke about Opera being your virtual mentor, because you can really truly gain a lot of knowledge,
Absolutely.
learn a lot from a person that you will never meet, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That
That's
is
fine.
absolutely
That's
fine.
actually great.
Yeah.
And there are many of them out there. There are many of them. They have books that they've written. They have shows that they do. They have books that they read, things that they listen to, people that they follow and admire. I mean, there's so much to learn just by being observant, you know, without necessarily having to have that person's direct phone number or be able to call them or say, oh, that's my mentor. Like I said, Oprah is my mentor, and that's that. Anybody that disagrees can fight me. You understand? So, you know, that's how
So
it is. Yeah.
I'm going to let you go in a moment. We've already taken more time than we expected thanks to the network.
I
But
know.
I'm,
Ah,
I'm, I'm
their
going to
network.
ask two things of you.
Yeah.
First thing is, with regards to your work, with regards to your Bloom network, right?
Yeah.
What can we expect? What can we look forward to? And if we wanted to say to ourselves, hey, I want this particular thing. I want to get one thing from Tosin through her network. What do you think that thing will be with the kind of work that you have planned out?
That's it's always going to be about collaboration over competition every day, all day, every year, in and out. And so when you asked me earlier about Yvonne, at the end of the day, guess what? That was just because we collaborated. You know,
Yeah.
she was coming to do something here, and we talked about it, and we figured out how to, you know, collaborate to do something, you know, at least for the 2 days that she was here, to do something really lovely. And you'll see that with a lot of the other events that we've had. If you go to the Bloom Africa page, a lot of the other events we've had too have been in collaboration. Even the launch event that we had at the very beginning, all those women, they showed up. They were collaborating with me. I didn't pay them. You know, it was just that they believed in, listen, this is a platform, it's for us, it's by us, so I'm going to support it. Very simple. And so as we continue on the path, obviously we can't do events like I planned this year because I love events. I love hosting.
Yeah.
I was going to have like teas and brunches this year. I had like really grand ideas to get women together so that we could talk and learn from one another and build a community. So what we had to do now is that we've had to pivot, which is fine. Pivot is good. It's a good exercise. It's good for the muscles to think about different things that
Mm-hmm.
you can do. So all I can say is that in the next month or two, look out for something that we'll be sharing with the Bloom community and everyone outside of the Bloom community. Again, it's going to be a collaboration with some of the women that I truly admire, and we'll be bringing something here. But it's something that I'm working on. I'm taking my time. I'm working on it because I always say that one of the things that drives me is always about value.
Yeah.
I don't do things as a response to what's happening at the time or what everyone else is doing. It's like, what can I do that I know will be of utmost value, that I know will reflect me and who I am in a way that I want it to. And so a lot of the things that I do, I take my time, and I may not be doing 1,000 things, but each of the 4 things that I do, I'll make sure that it's quality and that there's a lot of heart that goes into it. And I tell that to women too, that even when you're setting goals for yourself, like at the beginning of this year when we had the retreat for the Bloom Africa, I told them, I said, hyper focus. Give me 3 goals, no more than 3 goals for this year. Because if you start to say, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do, I love somebody who wants to do everything. But what I have found in my journey is that the more you put on your plate, the harder it is to actually see one thing through. So you end up
True.
giving 10% here, 10% there, and then everything just looks one kind, right? And so part of what I practice and what I tell people to do is whatever the things are that you decide to do, take your time with them. Don't feel pressured. Don't say, oh, because everybody else is doing this thing, I have to quickly do something. Because we do that a lot in Nigeria too.
Mm.
We see what others are doing, and as it reflects, we too we want to do something, or this thing is trending, so we too we must join the trend. And it's like, but is it aligned with how you see yourself? Is it aligned with your purpose and your mission and your assignment? And you always have to do that gut check all the time. All the time, you must ask yourself. And then you respond from a place of authenticity and a place that is within you, not because you're chasing some kind of thing that is outside your purpose, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense, you know? So, yeah, that's key.
I like to take
That's key.
away, I like to get takeaways from things that people say. And from what you just said, I think that the biggest takeaway for me is when you're trying to figure out what to do and the plans that you're making, you're not trying to make reactionary moves. You're trying to do things that actually have
Never.
longevity and that would last, like evergreen kind of value. And at a
That's
point
right.
where I don't know, something might happen and you decide to pivot and change focus, or life could happen, right? What you've done is going to stand the test of time.
That's it. Take your time. Take your time. Don't pressure yourself unnecessarily, and trust yourself more. You know, I
Mm,
think sometimes we react because we don't actually trust ourselves to come up with our own unique responses. And so we look to what others are doing and we ride on that wave because okay, it looks like what I should be doing. But always ask yourself, is this true to me? Is this what I am supposed to be doing? Does this feel right for me? And always be honest with yourself. You know, I always say when people say like, oh, people are lying about other people, I say, why wouldn't they lie about other people when they're lying to themselves? Like people, I think Lauren Hill said it like, why would they tell you the truth when they're lying to themselves, And so we must practice being honest with ourselves first and foremost and learning to tell ourselves the truth at all times. And when you stand in your truth, trust me, things will begin to happen for you. And understanding that we're not here to compare the sun and the moon. I always say they're 2 different things completely, but they serve their own critical purpose in our lives. And so you are here for a critical purpose. Yours might move at a fast pace. Somebody else's might be at a slow pace. Somebody else's chapter 1, you might still be on your prologue, but you know what? They may get hung up in chapter 3, and you may find that is life by God's grace. Life is long for many people. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
mm,
And so never ever compete. You are not here to compete with anybody except yourself. Oh. And I say that all the time. That's why I say collaboration over there's no competition here. If we're all working towards the same thing and it's good and it has good intentions, then nothing else matters as long as we're all doing our part. And I think that's the most important thing that I'm always preaching is do not compare yourself to others. You are not the same. You're not here on the same assignment. You don't even have the same tools. Everybody has different tools that they're supposed to use to complete their own assignments. So just because somebody is doing motivational speaking does not mean that your own tool is motivational. Your own may be different. Do you understand? Your own may be to go and write a book. Your own might be to do videos. There's just so many ways that we can express ourselves. So always, always, always remember to be true to yourself above all else, really and truly. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. The final thing that I was going to ask you to do, you already did, because I wanted you to sort of give us a final thought, but I feel like the final big thought anyone needs to walk away from this session with is being true to yourself, telling yourself the truth at every point in time, and then letting that be your guiding light. Thank you so much,
That's it.
Tosin. It's been
Thank
so great
you.
talking to you. I've had a
Thank
beautiful time.
you.
I hope you've had a good time as well.
I had a good time. I had a good change my photo on that my mouth.
Okay,
I'm just
well,
joking. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
so, but I want to
I just
compliment though, that painting behind you is so beautiful. It's
thank
beautiful, it's big,
you.
it's bold. I've been staring at it. It's really good.
Yeah, people all sometimes ask if somebody painted me. I don't see it like that, but his name is Joseph Eze, and he's great. And me being proud of being a woman and being proud of my heritage and all of that, it's probably my favorite piece that
Yeah.
I own. So I love art as well. It's one of my favorite things. So thank you guys for the
Thank you
opportunity.
so
Thank you for your
much.
time today. Thank you to everyone. I don't know if we had time for questions. Somebody was saying they had questions. I don't know if they do questions on this talk. I'm sorry.
Well, we typically don't do questions, but what we do is like
No,
we get them and then we can send
yeah,
them to you via email just so that that way
sure.
people can establish a connection with you and a
Thank you to
relationship
my
as
friends
well.
that joined. I saw so many people. Thank you guys. See, these are the people that support you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I see you all. I appreciate you. And to everyone else
Thank
that
you.
didn't know me but showed up today, I appreciate you as well. And I hope I was able to give you something to hold in your hand for today and hopefully for beyond today as well. So thank you. And thank you so much for the opportunity once again.
Thank you. Have a beautiful one. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you. Thank you. All
Bye.
right. Bye. Bye bye.